Last week we discussed how kindness and judgment reign together in the heavenly courts, and how God judges us with judgment, with truth, and adds an element of kindness with it. And Ramchal notes other instances of Hashem's mercy that do not contradict the principle of justice. V'chein kol sha'ar darkei chesed. And the same is true for the other types of kindness that flow from Hashem's attribute of mercy. Ki'inyan biro mizake abba, such as the rule in the tractate Sanhedrin, that a righteous son can provide merit for a wicked father, o miktsas nefesh kechol nefesh, or the rule that a punishment to part of a soul is equivalent to the punishment of the entire soul, hamuskarim b'divrei hachachamim, that are mentioned in the words of the sages. Now, just an interesting side note. We've mentioned this in the past multiple times, that after someone leaves this world, that's it, they're done. There's nothing else they can do, except if they have laid down a solid foundation of children, hopefully grandchildren, of supporting institutions that perpetuate Torah study. So what happens is that even though they may have passed on, but their influence stays, and that influence brings about many more mitzvahs even after they pass on. So that bank account doesn't close. Oh, he passed away, it's over, right? But rather more and more keeps getting shoveled in by the Torah study and the mitzvahs. That's why we say Kaddish. Why do we say Kaddish after someone passes away? We say Kaddish because the Kaddish is bringing God into this world, so to speak. We're saying Yitgadel v'yitgadesh mirabah. Let God's name be glorified. Let God's name be expanded throughout the universe. Be'alma divrach hirutei, in this world and in all of the other worlds. May Hashem's presence be there. Well, why are we saying this? Because we're saying this should be a merit for the deceased. Because bringing Hashem into this world is the greatest asset of growth, of mitzvah. So, what he's saying here is that that even though a person, when we pass on, it's over, it's not really over yet. Okay, if a person invested properly in children who perpetuate a life of Torah, and grandchildren, etc., etc., so then what happens is it keeps on being a merit for them, and it uplifts their soul further. So he says, Darkei chesed heim lekabelis hamuat kemeruba. These are ways of kindness under which Hashem sees fit to accept a small merit of punishment as if it were a large one. Ach lo misnagdim umakchishim mamash midas hadin. But these leniencies do not actually oppose or contradict the attribute of justice. Ki kvar yesh bahem tam hogun lahachshiv osam. As there is indeed an appropriate reason to consider them. Ach sheyivatru averus below klum. However, to suggest that transgressions be overlooked without any retribution at all, oh, shelo yashgiach aleim, or that Hashem shouldn't pay attention to them, zehu neged hadin ligamri. This is completely contradictory to all justice. Ki kvar lo haya mishpat v'din amiti badvorim. For then there would not be true judgment or punishment regarding many matters. Al kain ze ef shalihi motze klal. It is therefore not possible for this attitude to exist at all. Right? There has to be an element of judgment. Now, the judgment can be lenient, but there has to be judgment. V'im echad min hadrachim shezocharnu lo yimatzei lachote lihimalet. Thus, if none of the ways we have mentioned can be found for the sinner to escape punishment, vadei shemidas edin lo toshuv reikom. It is certain that Hashem's attribute of justice will not return empty-handed. And so have the sages of blessed memory stated. Ma'arich ape v'gave delay. Hashem delays his anger, but if the sinner does not repent actions and develop the trait of zehirut. All right, so the idea here is like this. By focusing on the strictness of divine judgment, as described here, even members of the Judite, holding my steering wheel, and I just inched up a little bit to the line, where you're supposed to stop. The guy next to me was busy on his phone. He saw the car next to him move, which was me, and he just almost shot through the whole thing because he's busy on his phone. Yeah. Right? It's terrifying that we're living in a world where people are not focused on anything. They're just completely consumed by... So this is a reality. The reality is that we're facing a constant struggle. And I want to compliment you all because I know the Texans have their opening game tonight, Monday Night Football. And you're all sitting here in Torch studying Torah. That's an amazing thing. That means you're not allowing distraction to overtake you. That's an incredible thing. Right? Not to allow those distractions. Same thing. We will always have a distraction from investigating our own actions. What was the real intent? Why did I really do it? Why did I say that? Whatever it is, to really get down to the bottom of why and how we're acting. Okay, so if we're able to do that, we're in a very high level. Ramchal summarizes what he has taught us in this chapter. Nimtza she'ein la'adam harotzel lifkach einav pitui sheyuchal lihispatos bo. It emerges that a person who really wants to open his eyes has no rationale through which he can be persuaded. Levilti hizor b'maisav betachlis azihirus, not to be vigilant in his deeds with ultimate vigilance. V'ledakdek bohem tachlis adiktuk, and not to examine them with ultimate precision. Hein kol ela ashkofes sheyashkef alein adam. These are all the perspectives that a person must consider. V'yikna bam midas hazehirus vadai, and by doing so, he will certainly acquire the trait of vigilance, zehirut, which means caution, but overlooking and investigating his own actions. Imbal nefeshu, if he is a person of conscience. Let's look now at the summary here that the wonderful editors at Art Scroll prepared for us. The summary of chapter 4. The acquisition of zehirus, of vigilance, requires Torah study, specifically focusing on topics that deal with the importance of divine service and the profound punishment that results from falling short in fulfilling it. People with a wholesome perspective will be inspired to monitor the deeds and assess them, which is in essence vigilance, right? Zehirut. Through understanding that if they fail to serve Hashem properly, they will be lacking the spiritual perfection in the world to come. That they desire more than anything else. And we mentioned that. We desire to get to a very high level. We would be very insulted if someone of a lesser status than us gets a better seat in the restaurant or gets a better parking spot by the valet, right? A chutzpah, right? Don't you know who I am, right? And if someone else gets a higher spot in the world to come, which is much more, with we mentioned this earlier, but the Talmud says that the pleasure of the world to come is more intense and more enjoyable than all of the pleasures of this world combined. 1 second of it. So 1 second of the world to come's pleasure is far greater than all of the pleasures in this world combined. That means if you take all the billions of people living in this world and zoom or micro all of their pleasures into 1 second, it doesn't equal 1 second of the, or combine them to as long as you want, right? But all the great pleasures that people have, physical, spiritual, etc., anything, and you bring them all from all the history of mankind, it doesn't equal 1 second of pleasure of the world to come. Not even a single second of pleasure. Right? It's an unbelievable pleasure. And for people who we consider less than us, to have a higher status in the world to come, that would be devastating, right? It would just be a little bit embarrassing, it's not, okay. People on a lesser level must realize that lack of proper vigilance and resulting deficiency in divine service will cause them great pain when, in the world to come, they see others to whom they feel superior receiving greater honor and status for eternity. For average people, their Torah study should take the form of examining the many sources that speak about actual punishment in this world for even seemingly minor sins. Whatever one's level, the recognition of the serious consequences of not serving Hashem properly should serve as inspiration to carefully assess all of one's deeds, in order to assure that he will serve Hashem to the best of his ability. So this goes back to that theme that we've discussed so many times. You will never be judged, why weren't you like so-and-so? But you will absolutely be judged. We will all be absolutely judged. Why weren't we the best we could be? No one's going to try to compare it to anyone else. No one's going to try to say, your neighbor gave more charity than you. Well, my neighbor has more than me. Right? Their circumstances don't match my circumstances. God's not going to ask that. He's not going to say, why did your friend finish the Talmud 75 times and you didn't finish 75 lines, right? That's not going to be the question, right? The question is, why weren't you the best you could be? Why didn't you study what you could study? Why didn't you volunteer and help and be kind the way you could? Because I gave you those talents, I gave you those skills, I gave you those abilities. And here, they're not being used. Okay, yes?
I had a question about the previous page, that nefesh means conscience, because I was thinking, I thought nefesh was just...
Right. Well, it's not referring to nefesh itself. It says Baal nefesh.
Okay.
Baal nefesh is referring to it's more of like a term of usage where we say it's someone of conscience. It's someone who understands his responsibility.
Because I was thinking, what you just said, you can improve your conscience, but nefesh is just something...
Right. No, it's not. It's not. It's not. Right. It's not that little translation that you're right. That we usually. How you doing? You doing okay? You doing okay?
I'm doing just great.
Okay, great.
I was just thinking that Baal Nefesh means the master of the soul.
Right.
So, this person who has taken into consideration
and is sensitive to it.
Yeah.
And understands the responsibility. Yes.
So
Thank
if
you.
a parent says to a child, why are you not like your brother? That's
Right.
probably the worst thing you could possibly say to them.
That probably is. That's right. It's the same. It's almost the equivalent of asking a child, "Why aren't you like me?" Right? Why would you ask your child that question? Because I'm different. That's why I'm not like you.
And conversely, when you say to a child, I hope you have a child that's like you.
Nobody ever says that. Wow.
The mother always says, I hope you have two just like you.
I don't know which is worse.
Right. Neither of them are very admirable. Yeah. But yeah, look.
What if you hear them at the same time? You're really in trouble.
Yeah. You still. They were successful in making a mensch out of you. That I can tell you.
Yeah, they made a mensch out of me.
I'm saying you made a mensch out of yourself. There's no question. I'm saying, but they were lucky to have a son that's a mensch like you.
Oh, thank
There you go. That's what I meant. That's what I meant.
Ask my wife about that.
Say that again?
Don't let it get to your head.
Don't let it get.
Don't let it get to your head.
It won't ever. Thank you.
You're welcome.
As Leonard Hofstadter said on The Big Bang Theory, that's her summer house.
Mm-hmm.
Who's that guy?
I don't get that.
Yeah, we don't watch that. I don't know.
His mother was a psychologist, and his wife says to him, "Don't let your mother get in your head." She says, "It's too late." That's her summer house.
All right, let's continue.
I get it now.
All right.
Everyone good?
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, we're now going to begin the 5th chapter. So factors that detract from zehirut, from vigilance, and how to avoid them. So we all know that it's very easy to talk the talk, but how do we walk the walk? Chal is giving us the tools that we need to avoid falling into a trap of distraction, which is a very serious reality. We all have distractions. How do we avoid falling into that trap? Okay, so he says as follows: Hine mafside hamida hazos umarchikeo hem shlosha. There are 3 factors that detract from this trait of vigilance and distance a person from it. Ha'echot hu hatipu v'atir dolamis. The first is, I'm sorry, just running into some issues here. Okay, perfect. The first is when you have, the first is involvement and preoccupation with worldly matters. We have so much distraction, especially today. We know what that means. It's impossible to do anything without a distraction of a beep, of a page, of a a ping from our cell phones, from our computers, from our it's unbelievable how much distraction is built in. You go to a restaurant, there's the music, there's the other people, there's the television. It's always blaring with us the latest sports game, or the Olympics, or the championship, or the Super Bowl, or whatever it is. It's almost impossible for us not to be carried away and distracted. Wherever you go, there's something. I mentioned this to you before. I was once walking into an oil change shop over here, two doors down from the Torch Center, and I walk in and I give the guy my keys, and he says, "Okay, I'll be done in about 30 minutes." I said, "No problem." 30 minutes? No problem. I came running back here, got some work done, scheduled some meetings, did this, did that, replied to a few emails. And 30 minutes later, I get back there, and the people who were in the waiting room are still sitting in the waiting room looking at the television, right? And did nothing. While I felt like I had a very productive half hour, while there's absolutely nothing for me to do there. And if you go to someplace else, so come with a Mesilat Yesharim, right? Come with the book with you, so you don't waste your time. But the world is full of distractions that try to waste your time in these attractive television programs and commercials, so that even during that time you don't have a chance to think, you know what, I'm just wasting precious time. I'm wasting time that could bring me world to come. Instead, it's bringing me nothing. And they're trying to sell you this shampoo and this soap and this drink and this vitamin and this vacation and this island and this, right? Whatever it is that they're trying to sell you, right? To keep you busy, to not give you a chance to think. That's the Yetzer Hara. He's working overtime. The Yetzer Hara is working overtime trying to keep us busy. That's all he's busy with. All day. How do I keep you busy and not focused on the purpose? Not focused on the goal. Right? So that's the first thing the Ramchal tells us, is preoccupation with worldly matters. The second is Hasheni, Haschok Va'alotzon. The second is levity and mockery. Comedy shows, late night shows, all of these things, right? All these comedians and actors and everything keep you busy. Just keep you busy. How many hours and hours and hours and hours and hours accumulatively every single night being wasted in the United States? How many millions of viewers watch these shows? Literally wasting away their lives, wasting away the opportunities of reaching perfection, of reaching true, meaningful life. And hashlishi hachevra hara. The third is bad company, bad friends, bad neighbors, bad influences. Unedaber bahem echad leechad. We will discuss these three one by one in this chapter. Preoccupation of worldly matters. What does that mean? With respect to involvement and preoccupation with worldly matters, we have already spoken of them above in chapter 2, where we explained that when a person is preoccupied with the affairs of his physical world, his thoughts are bound by the chains of the burden that are upon them. And it becomes impossible for his thoughts to focus on his deeds to ensure that they are proper ones. It's impossible. We're so busy with so much going on that if we don't make the time, it's guaranteed we won't find the time. You will not find the time. I asked my rabbi recently, I've taken on a different responsibility, and I added a little bit to my responsibility teaching at the girls' school. I teach now double the time I taught last year. I taught there twice last year. Now I'm teaching there 4 times a week. And I asked my rabbi, maybe it's not such a good idea. Maybe he says, I'm a big fan of taking on more work. Because when you're really, really busy, the important things stay and the less important things fall off, right? And the truth is, people always are I think, in myself at least, limiting myself. Saying, maybe my time is better used like this, and I end up not doing things. And it's like, maybe use more time for yourself. It turns out that you have much more productive days when you're packing them in. You pack them in. No mercy. Right? I asked my rabbi once, I said, Rabbi, when are you going to sleep? He only sleeps 2.5 hours a night. So when are you going to sleep? He says to me, when I die, I'll sleep. Right? Now I don't have time to sleep. I have to work. Right? Okay, how he got to it. He told me that he used to sleep 7-8 hours a day, at night, 24 hours. And then, slowly he realized that, he has so much more to learn. He has so much more he doesn't have time to sleep, right? So he started sleeping, every few months he would chop down another 15 minutes off his sleep schedule, another 15 minutes off his sleep. Eventually he needed 6 hours, and then eventually he went down to 5.5, and eventually to 5. And now his body is, I guess, groomed to have that little sleep. And it's amazing. Well, probably one of the most busiest people on earth, and he just took on a new role himself as now being the Rosh Hashiva of Torah in Jerusalem. Right? It's like he didn't have enough to do till now. Probably, arguably, the busiest man I've ever met in my life, and now he just added another job. Right? Why? Because being busy is not a bad thing. It's a very good thing, right? But obviously, being busy with good things, right? Not being busy with just distractions. But that's the challenge of this world, though, is that we have so many distractions, so many things that are not important distractions, not valuable, healthy, spiritual distractions. We have the ordinary, mundane distractions, the being busy distractions. How to avoid this obstacle? When the sages, peace be upon them, perceived this problem, they said in Ethics of Our Fathers, chapter 4, Mishnah 12, reduce your involvement in business endeavors and involve yourself instead in Torah study. For indeed, some involvement with business is essential for a person for the sake of his sustenance. But it is not necessary that his business involvement be so extensive. Till it doesn't leave him any room for his divine service. Indeed, this is why we are commanded to set aside fixed times for Torah study every day. And that's what we studied actually in the Talmud study this week when we did our Thinking Talmudist. Right? That's the last piece that we discussed, that what's going to be asked of a person at the time of judgment, of the ultimate judgment in the world to come. Were you honest? Did you believe in the coming of Messiah, etc.? There are a bunch of questions that are asked. But the most important question is going to be, also, did you set aside time for learning Torah? You have to have set time for learning Torah. Right? And then it says, if you were God-fearing, then no matter what you answered, right, you're good. And if you answered positive to all the questions, but to God-fearing, you weren't God-fearing, then they throw you out. They say, go to, I'm not going to say to where, right? but that's what the heavenly courts would say, right? So, but it's a very interesting thing here that, I'll tell you an amazing story of the Chafetz Chaim. Now, please don't throw stones at me, okay? Chafetz Chaim had a grocery store. He had a grocery store. Now, if you were around and you had a choice, you were around in the time of the Chafetz Chaim, you had the opportunity 90 years ago to shop either in Randall's, Kroger, Belden's, Food Town, Aldi, any of those. So you pick it, okay? Pick whichever one you want, or to shop in the Chavetz Chaim store, the Chavetz Chaim supermarket. I mean, who wouldn't want to go to the Chavetz Chaim supermarket? Everybody would want to go. Why not? Of course you'd want to go.
Just to be clear.
Right? Yeah, you want to.
Support him.
What?
You
You want to support him. You want to be in the presence of such a righteous Jew. My grandfather, right?
know the meat's not gonna be short weighed.
Exactly. That's right. And I'll tell you something else. My grandfather told me this when I asked. There was a group of students that wanted to come see my grandfather and to get a blessing from him. So I asked my grandfather. My grandfather said, "Me? They want to come see me? What do I have to see me for? Well, who am I? I'm nobody." He says, "I didn't learn by the Chavetz Chaim." Right? They said, go to Rav Mordechai Zuckerman. He lived up the road and was a great, great sage, like an unbelievable righteous Jew. Right? He said they should go to Rav Mordechai Zuckerman. He learned by the Chavetz Chaim. He actually saw the Chavetz Chaim. Tell them to go to him. He can give them a blessing. And then he also added, he says, my beard is not such an attractive beard, but Rav Mordechai Zuckerman, he has a big beard. That they should go to him. Right? So there was two reasons he said to go. So it turns out, I told this group, this yeshiva, that asked me to arrange this meeting for them. So I told them the story. And so they said, okay, so where do we go? I told them exactly where to go, where Rabbi Mordechai Zuckerman's synagogue was. And they came there. And who was sitting with Rabbi Mordechai Zuckerman? My grandfather, and they got a blessing from both of them. So that's a true story. But you know what it means to be in the presence of the Chavetz Chaim? It's like, wow, Chavetz Chaim, right? He was like the Moses of the generation. It's like unbelievable. It's like huge.
So who do we have like him in this generation?
Rabbi Yaakov Wolbe.
Both.
So I'll tell you like this. So the Chavetz Chaim, he was what?
Oh, I was just.
He's asking me?
I'm embarrassed. I didn't know. Is that the same as a Rebbe or no?
No, he was a spiritual leader. He wrote 22 different books. One of them, only one of them being. I'll show you one of the books. Okay, so my friends online, hold on one second. You want to get me just that one over there, please?
Isn't it true he never put his arms down?
Which one is it?
Below his waist, yes.
Yeah,
That one. Next column. Next column. Next, yeah, down. Yeah, perfect. Any one of those books. No, not the blue, the red. Yeah, perfect. So this is one of the. Okay, this book is a book of halacha. It's known as the Mishnah Berurah. Okay, now this. Okay. Many commentaries, all his commentary. Just the top lines are the Shulchan Aruch, all right? And all the bottom here is written by the Chavetz Chaim. All his commentary, not commentary, really zeroing in on what we do practically in halacha. This is part of a 6-book series that I have right over there, sitting in the magnificent Don Levitt Family Library, okay? And this is just counted as one book. Means those 6 is considered one book, one of the 22 publications, right? You ever heard of Lashon Hara? How do we know about Lashon Hara? From the Chavetz Chaim. He wrote the book. That's how he got the name. He wrote a book called Mi Ha'ish HaChafetz Chaim. It's a verse in Psalms. Who is the man that desires life? Chafetz Chaim desires life. Ohev Yamim Lirotov. King David says, is a person who always wants to see the good. So he named the book Chafetz Chaim, and that's what he got his name from. Right? People started calling him the Chafetz Chaim because of the book that he wrote. That's also only one of the 22 books that he wrote. Right? Shmirat HaLashon, which is being careful how we speak, is another book he wrote. And 22 different books that the Chafetz Chaim wrote.
I'm sorry, what's Chafetz?
Chafetz Chaim.
Yeah, how do you translate Chafetz?
Desires.
Desire life.
Desires life. Right. It was unbelievable Chavetz Chaim. So who wouldn't shop in the Chavetz Chaim store? Who wouldn't shop in his grocery? Everybody would want to shop in the Chavetz Chaim's grocery. So Chavetz Chaim would open up his store Sunday morning, and he would sell his groceries, until he made enough money for Shabbos. As soon as he made enough money for Shabbos, he'd say, okay, everybody, thank you very much for shopping here. We are officially closed. You're welcome to go to our competitors and shop by them, right? And he would shut the store and go back to the Beis Medrash and learn. He had enough money for Shabbos. And the following Sunday morning, he'd open the shop again, right? And you can imagine, who didn't want to shop at the Chafetz Chaim's shop, right? And as soon as he made enough money for Shabbos, he'd lock the door and go back to study.
Did he like give Devar Torah?
I don't know, because I don't know if people, when they come to shop, that's what they're coming for, right? They think they just want to get their groceries and go home. But maybe, you never know. Either way,
You gotta shop fast.
you got to shop fast. Shop fast, and otherwise you snooze, you lose, right? Right? So what the Ramchal is telling us here is that when you have a business, great, have a business. You need to have parnasa. You need to have a livelihood, right? For indeed, some involvement with business is essential for a person for the sake of his sustenance. But it is not necessary that his business involvement be so extensive that it does not leave him any room for his divine service. Indeed, this is why we are commanded to set aside fixed times for Torah study every single day. Tractate Shabbat 31a. Thank you so much. That was what we learned this week in the Talmudist, Thinking Talmudist program on Friday afternoons at noon. Ramchal explains the unique connection between studying Torah and acquiring the trait of zehirut, of vigilance. We have already mentioned in the previous chapter that Torah study is the most critical necessity for a person to attain zehirus, watchfulness or vigilance. Kemam Rabbi Pinchas, as indicated by the opening statement of Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair in the Brisa, cited in the introduction. Torah mevia l'dei zehirus, the study of Torah brings one to vigilance. V'zulasa lo yagia elov klal, for without Torah study, one will not attain vigilance at all. And this is what the sages of blessed memory meant when they said in chapters, in Ethics of Our Fathers, chapter 2, Mishnah 5, V'lo am haaretz chasid. An ignorant person cannot be a pious person. An ignorant person cannot be a pious person. Because if you're ignorant, you don't know what good and bad is. You don't understand the intricacies, right? It's very difficult to be a pious person if you're ignorant. Ramchal explains why the lack of Torah knowledge precludes the attainment of piety. Let's see if we have time. Okay, so we're going to stop here. But we're now in chapter 5, page 97. And hopefully we're going to continue next week explaining why it is a necessity for one to have Torah knowledge in order to attain piety, and certainly in order to gain a vigilance of their own actions. With that, my friends, thank you so much for watching us online. And for all of you who are here, safe travel home.